Welcome to the Business of College Consulting podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Daly, founder and CEO of Advantage College Planning and Advantage College Planning Franchising. Building a business is not for the faint of heart. In the Business of College Consulting podcast, you'll hear stories from successful college consultants on how they grew their business and the challenge and successes they had along the way. Grab your notebook and pen and get ready to be inspired. All right. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Melanie Talesnick from AdmitU Consulting from Livingston, New Jersey. Did I get that right, Melanie? Livingston?
Yes, that's it. That's where we're home based out of.
That's where the magic happens.
Sure is.
To the Business of College Consulting podcast. So welcome, Melanie. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm really excited to be here, and I'm so proud of you for embarking on this. So for me, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Melanie. So I did a little digging and I learned that you went to the University of Delaware, double majored in marketing and management, worked for the NBA with professional athletes, which is so cool, by the way. Then went on to pursue recreational programs for kids. Is that right? Out from that work, sort of. Maybe.
Sort of, kind of. Yes.
Yes. And then wanted to pursue a career in teaching and athletic coaching.
Yeah. And here I am now. Right? So yeah, so that is basically part of my story, is the fact that this career is the career that I never expected to land into at all. I did have that super cool job when you graduate from college, and you know, if you're going to get a job, you might as well work in sports and with celebrities and travel and have that fun job that everybody wants to have. And then one day, sitting in my cubicle, I called my mom and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a high school guidance counselor. And my mom was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I want to be a high school guidance counselor. And my mom was like, you have to go back to school. And are you sure that you like kids that much? And I was like, it's an excellent question, because, you know, the real little ones, I don't think were my cup of tea. But really, I was like, Mom, I think it gives me an opportunity to coach. It gives me an opportunity to be in schools, and it gives me an opportunity to be exposed to something else. And if I don't like this job that I have in business now, how am I going to ever like anything else within the field of business? So I went back, I got my master's in counseling. I ended up actually getting a job at my old high school, actually in my counselor's office. That was my first office, and also coached the girls' soccer team when I was there, and ended up just really falling in love with this whole academic side of counseling. You know, like the social emotional side of everything was great. But when I had the opportunity to really do academic planning and college counseling and, you know, all of that aspect of it, which, by the way, you learn nothing of in your master's program. And so the learning piece of it is really what kept me going and kept me so excited. So I was a high school counselor for about 11 years. And at some point while I was there, I was kind of watching all of the teachers leave to go make some additional money as tutors. And I kind of sat there and was like, well, what can I do? I'm going to become a college counselor. And that's really how I entered into the field. Did it on the side for about 11 years. And now it's been 8 or 9 years now that I am out of schools completely and just running the business full time, and have this gig that I never, ever thought that I would be in, because I don't think many people would be like, Melanie, I can't believe you ended up in the field of education. So, right. But I love it.
Oh, I love that story, Melanie. So cool. Are there any overlaps in working with professional athletes and working with teens?
Yeah, they're a lot. They're high need.
Yeah.
They have a lot of demands. Sometimes you got to reel them both in. Yep. So, that's so cool. I think they have a lot of similarities that I'm sure we could even dig into even more of them.
Right. I'm sure. So tell me, how did your degree help? So in marketing and management, I assume that starting a business, you had some framework baseline to start with your education.
I did. And, you know, I never really when I got into this and everyone's like, do you have a plan? And do you have a mission statement? And do you have everything that you should do to start a business? I kind of went with my instincts and did a lot more of the, well, I have a kind of background in this, and the pieces of marketing that I constantly use are those aspects of, I love going out and giving different presentations, like whether it's at the library or different webinars and those aspects of it. I also am the first one to look for like different promotional items, like when the pandemic struck, I was like, we obviously need to have AdmitU hand sanitizer. And in New Jersey, we have no more plastic bags in the grocery stores. So we did AdmitU shoppers. And so that aspect of things is, where I think the marketing, the creativity aspect of it comes along. But, certainly the managing the business is, I don't really think, even when I worked at the NBA, that I ever really had a 9-to-5 job. So, the aspect of trying to manage your schedule and starting the business and, different networking and connections and that sort of thing came more instinctual instead of more, I wish that I was a much better planner. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So what was your biggest challenge when you started, when you left your full-time job and started this full-time?
So one of the challenges was, convincing myself that this would be a great idea to give up your salary and your benefits to really launch this business and take that chance. Working in a school and having a tenured job, like that was pretty comfortable. It was, right. I had a place to go, place that I would work through and retire, and somebody that gave me benefits and a salary, and all of that seemed really great. And so the challenge of that was, really having the confidence to say, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And what can I do to go out and continue to recruit more clients? And I think one of the challenges is also really understanding that this lifestyle is a total different shift in your whole schedule. When you did work at a school, you were at a school from, 7:30 to 3, and those were your hours. Now my hours are, after school, because you have to be available when kids are available. So I think that was one of the challenges, is just kind of like, I really want to encourage people to still have a life. And it's definitely harder to do. But so you have to be a better planner. I also think the other biggest challenge, and I'm still not great at it, is saying no, is realizing like that may either be outside of my realm of expertise, or that's not a part of our package plan, or I don't think you're going to be a good fit for us. And that I did not learn until probably maybe last year or the year before, but it's getting there. Yes. And I think that's something with our business, is one of those things where there's not like a standard operating procedure. And, I think there's a lot of people in our field that do this and do it really well. And if we all sit and talk, there's a lot of things that we do really different. And sometimes I just wish that I was like, okay, what happens when, who does this, right, and how can I do that? And I don't think that I can execute things the same way you do, and vice versa. And I think that's this type of thing where you have to, again, like play to your strengths and understand what I'm the best at. And then where else can I go and get support? Like, right, the admin tasks are something that I desperately needed.
Yes. Oh, you brought up some really good points, Melanie. One of which I want to just jump back to, which is like, as a new IEC, especially, I remember feeling like if you can fog a mirror, I will work with you, because you're so desperate to get that first like group of students. Right. And then you learn very quickly, oh, hang on a second. Like, maybe this is not my ideal client. And that forces you to think about, who is my ideal client? Like, who do I want to work with? And I get it at the beginning. And I even tell new ICs this, like, it's okay to work with not so ideal clients, but you have to have some parameters, because if you don't, you're going to end up working with a lot of people who may not fit your style well, because those people inevitably will attract others. And then you'll have this onslaught of people you're working with who, it may not work as well. So you bring up a really great point.
I couldn't agree more. And it's scary to be like, I'm going to say no to this.
Right.
And, then what's going to come next?
Right.
So, and certainly as I evolved, I definitely made, additions and to my contract and things that are included and aren't included. And like, I remember when I first started, someone was like, will you help us with honors programs? And of course you're like, sure, I can't wait to help you with honors programs. And then you're like, wow, that was a lot of additional hours. So the following year, honors programs are an additional charge. Like, there were just different things that you continually learn as you go through it, because there's not like one right or wrong way to do it. Somebody else may say, of course, honors programs are included in our process, or,
Right.
you can use your hours towards that. We don't.
Right. Exactly. I love that you bring that up, that your contract can be a living, breathing document. It is not set. I mean, once you sign it with a client, obviously you're bound to that, but you can always update it. Are there any other things that you've updated over the past few years that might be good learnings for new IECs?
Yes, because I think that specifically with the pandemic, one of the things that we saw was people want to apply to more colleges than ever. So we learned we're going to cap the amount of colleges that we include in our process. And then if you want to apply to more colleges, we're happy to help you, or I'm happy to let you fly on your own. But certainly I realized that an all-inclusive package before you define parameters really means everything. And then eventually when I started to realize I don't think it's necessary to apply to this many colleges, that was one of the things that we certainly changed. Another parameter that I came up with that it's not really in my contract is when I first started, I was super and uber accessible to everybody. Text me, email me, call me on nights, weekends, whatever it is. And then I realized I think that it's okay to not answer a parent back at 11:30 at night, or, when they get the panicked, those 4 a.m. emails I think are interesting. I happen to not be up at 4 a.m. That I am a sleeper. But when you get up in the morning and you're like, wow, Mrs. Blah, blah, blah emailed me at 4 a.m., there's a lot happening on her mind, which is a lot better than the text messages that I used to get at that time. So I have put limits on that. I'm still really accessible, and kids are kids. If a kid texts me late, I'll say, hey, it happens to be that I happen to be up right now, but let's do this. Let's not text me so late. And then they're like, okay, I get it. So I think those aspects of it kind of also goes back to do I ever want to say no or not be available? And, but I still find that I'm pretty available. So, but that's definitely one of the other learning curves of it too, is where can you set some of the parameters?
Right. Exactly. Now, we haven't shared with the audience how you've grown your business or what your business looks like today. So obviously you started as an independent consultant. Share a little bit, paint the picture for us. Like, what does AdmitU Consulting look like right now?
Sure. So it did just start out as it was just me, and I was the college counselor. I was the essay coach. I returned the phone calls. I was every aspect of the business that you could think of. And thankfully, as we continued to grow, you hit a spot where you could either say, now this is the amount of clients that I'm going to take, and I'm totally satisfied with this, or I'm going to bring on additional people. And because I did work in a guidance office, I felt for me, the best fit for AdmitU were other people that were also involved in the field of education. And it so happened that I had another colleague that I was like, hey, do you want to do this outside of the office? And she had really never heard of college counseling. Well, like many people hadn't heard of college counseling. And she was like, what do you mean you get paid to do this on the outside? And I was like, yeah. So she was like,
Awesome.
okay, I could do that. And so she started picking up some additional clients that were through AdmitU. And together, I thought that we shared a lot of the same values through the process, which I thought was really, really important whenever you bring people in. And we had very similar counseling styles and that sort of aspect, and the same interest in also continually learning, like visiting campuses, going to conferences, interacting with new people. And we shared a lot of that. So I brought her on, and I believe that Allie's been with me for, it's got to be like, we were still both working in school. So over 10 years. And then as we then continued to grow, again, you hit that same wall of, should we turn people away or should we bring more people in? So I also have another 3 part-time counselors. And then for a long time, my counselors also always did the essay coaching as well. And then they all still do it and really love it. I decided that for me to be able to focus more on the business, that I no longer do the essays. I miss it, but I don't miss it as much as I think that I should. So I felt that there were other people who would be just as good or better at doing the essay portion of it. So we've also now brought in essay coaches, and I believe this is my 3rd season with essay coaches. So awesome. It's helping me become a better business manager, because I think it's important that you also manage the business and not let it manage you. I could dish out a lot of advice, but I don't take my advice as well as I should. Not good at that, but I'm trying to be better, which is, lessening my caseload and then really supporting my other counselors and being that true supervisory role that when I can. I'm getting there.
Yes.
Not there yet.
Well,
and I'm not ready to give up the kids.
Right. Exactly.
Not yet.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. I think, you've identified that you obviously love working with kids, and giving that up would not better your situation necessarily. So good for you for, sticking with that. But the cool thing is, as a business owner, you have the ebbs and flows, and you may have a year where you say, you know what, I don't want to take on as many. And it sounds like you have a great team to help support you through that.
Yes. And I think that if you ask me what the biggest challenge is, I think that's the challenge that I'm at now, is really just coming down to like who to hire, who's a great fit for your team, who's a great fit for your students. And, like, we aren't a firm that's, a niche or a boutique type of firm. We work with the students who come to us, and we work with, all different types of styles of kids. We work with all different types of kids. So whether you have a learning difference or you're the valedictorian, we have everybody, and we work with athletes and artists, and we have everybody in between, as long as we feel as if that we can service you. And that's the way that we work. But that to me has been my biggest challenge.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing? I think a lot of newer IECs have questions about marketing, and you had mentioned doing presentations, and you had mentioned promotional items, which I love, by the way. Can you share a little bit more about things you did, knowing that you have a degree in marketing, right? What did you do from a marketing perspective right out of the gate?
I think that this gets asked all the time, and I really felt like those presentations were huge. I think if you can, and if some of the parent teacher organizations let you, those are great places to connect as well. I've also done at some of the local college fairs, they sometimes let local businesses set up tables. So I've done that. But really, I think it's a lot through the networking. I think it's really focusing in on your town. Oh, I know what I do. I am a sponsor of in Livingston, there's a big athletic booster, and we're a sponsor of that. And sometimes it's scary to be like, hey, I'm going to throw money at something and hope that my sign at the football field does something. I think there are a lot of Facebook mom groups, and within those, you can certainly put yourself out there as well. They are your biggest cheerleaders, and sometimes they could also be the place that brings you down.
Oh
You know,
no.
I've been in there where, you know, someone's been like, oh, we recommend AdmitU. And then some other mom is like, their prices were ridiculous. And then, but that's okay. And that's just a big part of, again, like that ebb and flow of business. But I think just trying to find a lot of different avenues where you can put yourself out there. I have a decent social media. I love my social media manager. And side note, your students are much better at social media than you are. For a long time, I had like past graduates manage my social media and do that aspect of it. So that's been a place where I think consistency with social media ends up being a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Lots of great ideas. I love the booster idea. Have you seen clients directly from that, or do you feel like it's just good brand awareness?
I think brand awareness is really what it comes down to, you know, and thankfully, you know, I can't believe this, but like I've been doing this 20 years. And so we're 20 years. I opened an office probably only like 8-9 years ago. I happen to love my office. I am glad, quote unquote, that the pandemic showed me that we can do this via Zoom. So the majority of our clients have always been really localized, but, you know, word of mouth of somebody's cousin, somebody's camp friend, whatever it is, has certainly expanded us a little bit more. But in general, our market has really always been kind of really close to home. So we're very happy to be like, oh, AdmitU. And if I meet somebody in town, they're like, oh, you're the college counselor. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am a famous college counselor. So that aspect of things, you know, I think the brand awareness, you know, putting your business card in the like the high school playbill that just had a theater program, the hockey teams always come after it. So there's and they're your students. So then the next part is you're also supporting your kids when, you know, when they ask you to place an ad in the playbill.
Right,
So,
exactly. You can support them at the same time. I love that. Do you have any kind of client referral program?
So I don't have anything set in stone, but certainly if we have parents that have been very good to us, we're happy to be very good to them back. You know, but I don't have anything in particular, but we definitely recognize when people seem to be our biggest supporters. And honestly, like that's how I say that my business really started is I was at Livingston High School. And when I left Livingston High School, I sent out business cards because I changed to a different high school not too far away, sent out business cards. And I always say, like, I got one mom who I had her oldest son. She had 3 boys, and she was my best PR agent for, you know, multiple years throughout the high school. And that was really how business can, you know, started. I wish that there was, again, like a secret formula for how you get business in this, but it's really, I think, word of mouth. And, you know, and that is a marketing concept that they do teach you, but word of mouth has definitely been the way that my business has grown, you know, through that and through referrals for sure.
Yes, I just interviewed Lisa and Bob Carlton, and on that episode, Lisa shared that, you know, when she first started her business, she was talking to Bob about, you know, this is great. Like I've been able to grow this business and I haven't done any marketing. And Bob said, Lisa, yes, you have. It's called over servicing. And that's actually a marketing technique. And I was like, I have never heard that term before, but I was so excited to have a term for it because it's so true. As a new IEC, I feel like the best thing you can do is just over provide and give as much value as possible. So those parents can't help but talk about you, which sounds like that's exactly what you've done. Love it.
And it's not something that, and it's something that we pride ourselves on. Like this is a business where I can tell you that I happen to love my job, like
Oh,
wake up every day and don't mind. And when we're working, sorry, new IECs, but when we're working 7 days a week during that busy season and you don't know when, which day it is. And, well, I've been outside because I walk the dog, but other than that, like if you've been away from the computer, but I don't mind. Like I love my job. So
I love that.
that's really what I love.
Yes, I love that.
Mm.
Melanie, do you have your like one piece of advice or your favorite piece of advice for new IECs as they embark on starting a business?
I always tell you I'm great at giving advice, but I don't think that I take my own advice basically
That's
ever.
okay. You don't have to take it.
Right, that's true. I think one of the aspects that I learned that I love is finding a great network within our organizations. I've like found some great people that support you. I found some great people that you might be like, I have this great idea, and someone's going to be like, nope, that's a terrible idea. Or, like, let's talk about it further, because it's in our title. Like, you are an independent educational consultant. And, like, we all launch our own mini businesses and not work for one giant firm. So I think that finding people who share your same style, who have your same kind of like thoughts and goals, and, people that you can genuinely throw ideas off of. I'm also pretty lucky that I have my dad, who's been my business advisor for a long time. So that's been great. I gave him a title. He is the chief marketing officer, and then he's also the chief father officer. So,
Love it. Your
give him,
CFO. I
he
love
is my
it.
CFO. That's right. So we really just kind of keep him involved, and, like it keeps him active and busy, and, he's retired, and, he turned out pretty good. So we're always okay to be like, hey, Dad, do you have any new ideas? So I think all of those aspects of it, because it is kind of lonely at the beginning, and you aren't sure, am I doing this right? Or because there is no right or wrong. So I think finding your people, going to conferences, staying involved even in your local organizations as well, are the ways to really do it.
I love that. I couldn't agree more, Melanie. Get involved. Yeah. And meet other IECs. And I think this industry is so collaborative that you can find other people, even in your local area, who are willing to meet and share. And so both HECA and IECA have local groups. So that's a great suggestion. Any books, podcasts, anything that you recommend that new IECs check out, or any of your favorites?
So I think everyone should listen to this podcast.
Oh, thank you, Melanie.
So, I honestly, so one of the first books that I ever read, that I will say, like, I am not into the reading all the bestsellers of how to launch a business, because I feel like you could read a million of them. But I loved the book Rock Hard Apps. And it was one of the first books that I read, because, again, this is an industry where you are taught none of it, of how to navigate an application or how to do anything. Like, I have a master's in student personnel services. Like, college counseling should be one of the classes, and it's not.
Right.
So
Yes.
that was one of the books where I don't know how relevant it is now, because obviously I don't know if it updated to like the new Common App, or like how to work with new students, but that was definitely a book that I read. And I also think, just like we encourage our students to read for pleasure, like just read for pleasure, because honestly, this is all we do and talk about. Like, we're hits of parties. I hope everybody knows that. But as soon as somebody learns, like, stuff about college, like, you are the number one person to talk to in the room. So I like to read books by a lot of different comedians. And awesome. I love Mindy Kaling's book, like, Why Are All the Cool Kids Hanging Out Without Me? And it's great. And like, it's an easy read. And sometimes you just like need to shut your brain off. And and Mindy Kaling in her book was like, God, Tina Fey, I hope my book is as good as yours. And I was like, I wanted to write to Mindy and be like, your book was better. Sorry, Tina. But like, so honestly, I think that's a big part of it, because like, this is definitely a business where you could eat, sleep, breathe it, and it's all people want to talk about. Like, so do something for you. And that's what I would say. If you want me to talk about books, that's what I would do.
Love that, Melanie. Thank you. And I'm going to check out that book. I'm pretty sure that I have rock hard apps. It's so funny you say that. So I've got to go back and look on my bookshelf. I'm pretty sure I have it. Maybe circa like 2010. I don't know. Like it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but I definitely had it and read it. And I think there's like Post-it notes, and I like annotated it and everything.
I love it. So wrapping up, one more question. Is there anything or any questions that you wish I would have asked that I have not?
That is a great question. I would say that I want to encourage people to, I'll say, also make some time for you, and I'll say, so like, what do you do in your spare time? And it's not that I would say like I have lots of spare time, but I would say like do something for you in that time. So, what do you do in your spare time? What do you do in your spare time, Brooke?
Oh, that's a great question, Melanie. But I do know that you, speaking of spare time, so you play tennis, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else that keeps you sane during the busy season?
I think tennis is definitely a part of my saving grace, I guess we'll call it, because that I definitely love. I have a very adorable dog, and he, will come to the office, and he's definitely he's a good therapy animal. And I think it's just like taking that little time for you, like unwinding. I love the beach, and yes, today in Jersey, it is like 32 degrees out, but when it gets to the summertime, like just taking the ability to just get outside and doing something for you is definitely what you want to do. And, going on a tear of some TV shows, like just literally like taking your brain out of it for a minute and realizing that in all the years that I've done this, like, yes, you get nervous about deadlines, and yes, you get nervous about, is this kid going to get in anywhere and that kind of stuff. But, like I say, like for 20 years, I've been doing it, and we've been doing it really well. And we've never lost a kid yet toward the deadline. And, you're not going to be the first, but yes, it is going to be something that you might worry about. So get out there and do what's good for you.
I love that. I think we should just end on that note. I totally agree. Having that work, well, I don't believe in work-life balance, but being present in whatever you're doing, but having that time outside of work, because it can be all consuming. You could spend days, weeks on the NACAC listserv or IUCA listserv, just reading and, thinking about the latest. And so I think that's great. Unplug your brain for a bit.
For a minute.
Yes, good for a minute. All right, Melanie, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast, and I'm happy to see your face.
Yes, thank you, Melanie.